Well, hello all my yoga friends. Welcome to Got Yoga. I'm Chris Scott, and in today's episode 5 of How to Handstand Yoga, we're talking about descending the femur bone. And let me just tell you, I think I learned this from Dicey Decline. This was instrumental in amping up my handstand practice, specifically pertaining to kicking up into handstand. Let's talk about descending the femur bone. The descending the femur bone, what I'm really trying to get to is how square are your hips, or how level are your hips as you bring your shoulders over your wrists and kick up as you bring your hips over your shoulders and kick up into handstand. And this is super important. A lot of people have a tendency when they kick up into their handstand to externally rotate. So with that one leg up, they open their hips. So their hip points are not pointed down towards the floor here. Their toes are turned out and they're externally rotated. And when you have your hips open like that and you kick up into handstand, what that does is there's a loss of control in your center. So everything's not hugging into the midline like we talked before, and there's a momentary loss of control that you don't want happening. But when you kick up into your handstand, if you have those level hips and your inner thighs are hugging in towards one another as you kick up into your handstand, both of your hips are going to go over your shoulders at the same rate, and you're going to be able to keep your core connected. And that's what you want happening in your kick up to handstand. So let's get that feeling going in our bodies by hopping into downward facing dog. If you don't know all the little intricacies of downward facing dog, I have a tutorial for down dog on the Got Yoga YouTube channel you can check out. I'll leave a link for it in my profile. But let's start in downward dog and get that feeling of descending the femur bone. So foundation for our down dog, hands are shoulder distance, index fingers pointed forward, pressing into the hands. Lift the hips up, bring the feet together. And if you don't know all this stuff that I'm talking about here, go back to episodes 1 through 4 and these will all make more sense. Woo. Okay. Pressing into the hands, firming the forearms together, broadening the chest. So the inner upper arms are turning towards the face. And now we've got that stable platform for our hand in down dog and for our future kick up into handstand. You've got the hips lifted super high and you're softening the ribs so the abdomen is drawing up towards the spine. And now we're going to descend the femur bone. So what I want you to do is just hover your left foot above the ground a couple inches here. Your left foot is flexed. Your toes of your right foot and the toes of your left foot are in one line. So your left foot is not going forward or backward. So you're keeping the hips squaring down towards the ground. You're squeezing the thighs together. And that outer hip on your right leg is lifting up. And the thigh bone is reaching deeper into the socket. So that's the feeling you want when you kick up into your handstand. Let's do the other side. Hover the right foot. So the thigh bone on the right leg is reaching deeper into the socket of the right hip socket. The right foot is flexed and the hips are squaring down towards the floor. Now let's get that idea of squaring the hips. So step your feet up towards your hands and fold forward here. And we're going to come into a standing split. So cupcake your hands, inhale, rise to a flat back, and then exhale, bring a little bend to your knees and shoot one leg back. So the top of your thigh on your standing leg should be engaged. Now don't open your hips up here in your standing split. Square your hips down towards the floor. Squeeze the thighs together and reach that left heel away. And in this standing split with a tiny little bend in the knee, that's the same feeling that you want to get when you kick up into handstand. So let's do the other side really quick. Plant your left foot down. Little bend in the knees if you need to get your hands cupcake down onto the ground. Ground through your left foot. reach your right heel away. So instead of opening up that hip, you're going to squeeze your inner thighs together, square your hips so the hip points are pointed down towards the floor, and then you try to reach that back of that right thigh up towards the sky. And that's for your standing split. So let's take the descending of the femur bone we learned in down dog and the leveling of the hips we learned in our standing splits and put that into action for kicking up into handstand. We're just going to touch on kicking up into handstand today to get that feeling of descending the femur bone. But next week we're going to learn some hamstring stretches that are going to help us out for kicking up into handstand. So some yummy hamstring stretches to get the hamstrings prepared for kicking up into handstand. And then the next week we're going to go over tips to help you kick up into your handstand. But for now, if you could bring yourself to a wall for safety, that'd be great. So you want your hands, imagine there's a wall here. You want your hands about a forearm distance from a wall. All those things we talk about, spreading the fingers wide, index fingers pointed forward, press back into a downward facing dog, feet together, press into your hands, firm the forearms, broaden the chest, and then descend the femur bone. So whichever foot you're going to be standing on when you kick up into your handstand, leave that one planted, plug that foot into the socket, flexing the foot, descending the femur bone. So the outer hip is lifting up as you squeeze the thighs together. Find that feeling for the foot that you're gonna kick up with, and then step that foot underneath your belly here. So you want to bring the shoulders over the wrists. You want to square the hips. So don't open up the hips. Level the hips down towards the floor. Hug the inner thighs together and then reach up through that heel that's in the air. And then just kick up. And you want to find as little movement as possible in the hips. I actually kick up with my right leg. I don't know why I did that with my left leg. So try again. You can take a break, shake out the wrists. You come into your down dog. I'm going to descend the femur bone. So on my right leg, because that's the leg I take underneath my belly. So get that feeling of the outer hip lifting up, the thigh bone hugging into the socket, that descending of the femur bone, and then take that feeling, keep it as you bring the foot underneath the belly. Shoulders over the wrists, and then squeeze the thighs together, level the hips, plug the femur bone into the socket, reach up through that leg that's in the air, and see if you can kick up. So you really, I do this leg. I'm going to go over more tips for kicking up. Sorry, I just ate a pizza, so this is kind of hard. But squeezing the thighs together, leveling the hips, reaching up through that leg, and then just doing little hops here. Little hops. Trying to keep those hips level and hopping. Wow, I shouldn't eat pizza. Okay. Phoebe's not here because she's sleeping, but I hope that all made sense. Send me a message if it didn't. I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.